All right, good morning. Good morning. Cameron, okay. I think Cameron's on mute for the moment because we're still not sure if he's with us today.
I think I can do this. I'm gonna keep an ear open on this meeting.
Okay.
Do all the nerdy things.
Groovy. Oh dear, I lost some button positions. Anyway, so good morning. Let me screen share the chat over to Cameron. Damn, I thought I had everything up and running. I was near enough, close enough for government work, right? Yeah.
Boy, the last time you ran.
Running is no longer in my repertoire. If I wasn't too fat for it, my knees have still suffered too much trauma, and I do mean trauma. So good morning. I see Steve and Jamie in the comments, both of whom joined us for the Clusterfuck last night, but in two different capacities. I think we had a pretty good show last night. Had fun talking about stuff that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. So, yeah, thanks for joining us last night, those of you who did. If you didn't, you can still check it out at pocketapp.net, and I have not reposted it yet. I'll do that while I'm doing the rest of the reposting after the show this morning. But the pocketapp.net live exclusive from last night will be reposted in just an hour or so. It'll be available on BitChute, Odyssey, and pocketnet.app. I think those are the only places that I'm certain I can put it. Like, for content, I could put it on Dailymotion, but it was such a long show that Dailymotion won't take it up.
You really don't think Facebook will let it fly?
I don't know, man. Facebook actually has more onerous restrictions than YouTube, but is less effective at the enforcement of those restrictions. I'm a little cagey about trying to put it over on Facebook. And, which is interesting, actually, with reference to the show we did last night, because one of the things we talked about was the difference between what the level of punishment is, what the risk is for taking certain illegal actions, versus the meaninglessness of those risks, of those punishments in a case where the regulation or the rule isn't enforced. But yeah, especially when we're still breathing down the neck of our most recent YouTube yeeting, I don't want to take any chances and lose a platform while we're trying to hold on to another tenuous platform. So, anyway, Joe Biden is the president of the United States. And for that reason, toter wins are slim and picking. So maybe we just start doing Tech Thursday when we don't have toter win to go to as much as possible. And I want to do more tech stuff anyway. I want to spend more time talking about tech, spend a little less time talking about politics, especially when we're not in the middle of the most contested and vitriol-laden, I was going to say election cycles, because no matter what you think about how the 2020 election went on the national level and all the conspiracy theories that are out there that we have analyzed and discussed in whatever capacity we've been able to, the fact of the matter is that the election season leading up to the election last year was not unprecedentedly nasty, but it was very nasty. I mean, nobody got accused of being a hermaphroditic slave trader bent on selling your daughters into prostitution, but they came close.
Well, and just the riots and the autonomous zones and just all those things.
Yeah, and it was amazing to me also that we're off the thread here, but it was amazing to me last year as the riots were going on. It wasn't just that people, we had people saying that there are riots going on is an unfounded conspiracy theory by lunatic QAnon worshippers on the right. And I'm like, there's
Fiery.
video.
Fiery, but mostly
There's
peaceful.
lots and
protests.
lots of video. And it's not just, this is not moon landing video. This is your, CNN standing in front of a blazing inferno saying fiery but mostly peaceful. Right? But not only
Just like
not only were they just purely denying the reality of it, but it was as if they forgot that just a few short years earlier, the same thing to a somewhat lesser degree was going on with Black Lives Matter and Antifa and Democrat activists going to colleges just because a conservative speaker, a Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro or Michael Knowles, Ann Coulter, just because a conservative speaker was about to speak, they were going and setting buildings on fire on college campuses. Like the Battle of Berkeley comes to mind. It's like they just completely forgot all that shit went down. So, let's get to some tech. Because this gives us an opportunity to nerd out.
It's wicked cool tech.
Show you my t-shirt. That's may the differential equation for force be with you. So here's what happened. I've got this article up from Breitbart. I found several articles about it. This is an article from yesterday. UAE, the United Arab Emirates, creates rain in Dubai by blasting clouds with drones. And guys, I worked with some of the soldiers from the UAE when I was in Afghanistan. These are Muslims who hate a certain breed of Muslim that we happened to be fighting at the time. Interesting characters. We had some really fascinating conversations. One of the that's neither here nor there. It's worth maybe another time. But Dubai, United Arab Emirates, it's creating its own rain using drone technology that blasts clouds in an attempt to tackle a heat wave in the city regularly surpassing 122 degrees. Okay, I've never been to Dubai or actually to the UAE, but like I just referenced, I spent time in Afghanistan and I spent time in Kuwait. And if you've never been in the desert in the Middle East in heat like this, you may think that having been somewhere in the Midwest in one of our, Arizona or Nevada, one of those deserts that we have in the United States where temperatures do get this high, that you have a close approximation, but you're missing out on a key detail that was shocking and alarming to me. The sand in Middle Eastern deserts is very different than the sand in U.S. deserts. It's old sand. It's been ground and pummeled by the wind and whatever else is going on over there. So much. It's like talc. It's like baby powder, right? It's not the fine grits that you wouldn't glue this to a sheet of paper to smooth your dresser out, right? This stuff is, it's just the finest powder. It's bizarre. We have lost soldiers and military equipment, vehicles in the desert where there'll be a hole in the middle of the desert that has been filled over just enough to have become invisible at the surface level. It's been filled in with this loose, fine grit sand, and you step in that hole, you're gone. It's like the lightning sand in the fire swamp, just vanished. Not a common occurrence, but it does occur, and it's shocking. The heat, when it's 120 degrees out there, the closest approximation you can find in America is if you were to turn your oven up to that heat and stick your head inside and just put a hairdryer on blast and dump the baby powder into the hairdryer, because there's constantly hot, dry wind blowing rivulets of this baby powder fine sand directly up your nose. And once your fart filter has all that talc in it, buddy, it's hard to deal with the fact that you're sweating so hard and so fast in such heat that the sweat is evaporating and leaving trails, visible trails of salt remains on your face. It's intense. So, Dubai, they're launching drones and using new technology to apply an electric shock to the clouds in the sky, so apparently the way it works is the shock happens and it draws the tiny wispy clouds together into a cloud that can produce rain, and part of the application also causes the clouds to produce more water in individual incidences of precipitation. We've got some video here I want to share with you. This is of a rainfall that was produced in this way. And before I play the video, I'd also like to point out we're talking about a world region that has an average of 4 inches of rainfall per year. I'm sure you can think of weeks in recent memory with 4 inches of rainfall in the week. And we're talking about a place that gets 4 inches a year. They don't just need this rain to stave off the oppressive, fatal heat. They need this rain. They just need water, right? So let's check out this video real quick. There's no sound. We're just looking at footage of, right? We're not talking about sending the drone up and generating a little bit of mist. Like there's some wipers working overtime and achieving nothing. This is torrential monsoon downpour that's being artificially generated. That's freaking amazing.
Yeah, it is. And man, there's so many different directions that we could go with the level of nerd of this. I am not a Luddite. I forget the name of the conundrum. I forget who proposed it, but it's basically, in regards to AI in particular, it's asked, should we try and make AI happen? And the answer ends up being yes, because until you develop the technology, you can't develop the counter technology. You know, there's a whole thing there. Like bulletproof vests didn't exist until, guns existed, right? So I still think that the potential for practical application runs all over the map. Like what if 50 years from now farmers don't irrigate their fields with traditional methods anymore, and a lot of these places out in like the California region and whatever, where people fight over water, no longer fight over water, because twice a week you send up a small army of drones and it just makes a thunderstorm happen over your field. And that would be amazing, really. However, there's the flip side of it. Like, what if the two countries go to war and one of them possesses this technology and they just decide to throw a sustained Category 5 hurricane at the other country? That would be a hell of a way to demoralize the other side.
And now, in fairness, the counter argument there is that this technology, and this caveat is important, as is, does not appear to have the capability to generate something like a Category 5 hurricane. But I would also like to point out that nobody was being assassinated at 3 miles away with a muzzle-loading musket when those were the word of the day. So there's definitely the once the technology exists, building a better mousetrap. Well, if there were no mousetraps, then a better mousetrap would not be built until a mousetrap was built, right? So let me just take a quick second, do some shout outs real quick. I already said hello to good morning, Steve and Jamie are with us. Trish is with us. Ma's with us. Good morning, ladies. Love you. That's my mother and mother-in-law. I see Highlands Husky. Thanks for joining us again. I see Uncle Steve. So we've got 2 Steves with us. Alex is with us. And Alex is with us again. My man! Thanks for the double tap. And Dan Burks has joined us. Good morning, everybody. And there's Anarchy. Hello, sunshine. Good to see you guys. I hope the topic is interesting. And EM has joined us again. He says this technology has been around since 1953. Yes. We're about to get to that, actually. The technology, the cloud seeding technology, has been around for a while. Its application has been limited before, however, because one of the big problems is the early cloud seeding technology. The equipment to do the work added an amount of weight. We've talked about this with, it's the same problem with achieving lights. One of the same problems with achieving light speed travel is the more fuel you require, the bigger the vessel you require to carry the fuel, which increases the amount of fuel required to carry the vessel large enough to carry the fuel, and that differential equation stretches out ad infinitum, so there's a point at which it's not usable. So the early technology, while used, the scale of its application was dramatically limited just by the available apparatus and the technology. This being done with drones, the drone swarm is very much a thing now. And I wish I'd have thought to pull some of this up earlier. Let me see if I can find some drone swarm footage. But a drone swarm is basically here's one. I'm going to play it without audio, just so that I'm just going to let it run behind us while we're talking. But here's some footage of a drone swarm. This is the wrong clip. This was supposed to be a news clip referencing actual swarms of drones. Damn it. This is some video game crap. Anyway, drone swarms. This is the one I was looking for. Okay. So, a drone swarm is a bunch of drones all running at the same time. And once they're all running, they run in tandem together. So, they mimic the flight of a flock of birds or a group of insects. This footage is supposed to be about drone swarms. There's no footage of the drone swarm in it. Okay, screw them.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I happened to catch a couple of things in the chat while you were looking. Steve asked a question about drought control, and then EM says, if you suck all the moisture out of the sky, what does that do to your neighbors downwind? And the unintended fallout that both of you reference is a thing, and that's even something that I asked Chris in our pre-show. It's like, okay, but if we make it rain in Arizona, does that suddenly mean there's an even worse drought in California, for example? Right. And while I think that's entirely possible, I think because of the way the biosphere of the Earth works, the fact that we're 2/3 water and that there is constantly water vapor being put into our atmosphere, I don't think that one is as much of a problem. Now, Steve brings up flood control. I think that one is actually something that would be extremely challenging. If you trigger an event that you think is going to cause 2 inches of rain to happen, but instead you get 5, that's the difference between giving everything a good soaking and making everybody happy, and there's mud puddles for the kids to play in when it's done, and flash floods.
Yeah, it's the difference between the crops are going to grow this year and I hope you bought one of those survival food buckets.
Yeah. And then in a place
and also a second story, because buddy, you gonna need to go up some stairs.
Yeah, and in a place like Dubai, it's entirely possible that the sand is so dry it could just suck up all the moisture. It's also entirely possible that you could just hit the right amount of conditions where it all just turns into mud, and then there's giant mudslides that happen. And mudslides are basically avalanches, but with mud. and like they'll wipe out a town.
Well,
Like it'll happen.
They're basically avalanches, but with mud and rocks.
Avalanches have rocks and shit like that.
Avalanches have rocks and ice in them, but the avalanche is cruising down the surface of the hard-packed snow below it. The mudslide contains the rocks before it begins. So an avalanche might pick up some rocks, but a mudslide is filled with them. They're yeah. So yeah.
So there's definitely the unintended fallout, but then there's also like one of the big applications for technology like this. If we could perfect it, like it's something like 180,000 acres are burning. I don't remember the exact figure, but it's a stupendous amount of fire that's going on over on the other coast, and we're talking about so much fire that it has increased the pollution quotient in New York by like a factor of 10, like literally. And it even affected our sunrise here in Atlanta, Georgia this morning. And how nice would it be if even just, once or twice a month, okay, that forest is in a drought. And we know what happens when this forest is in a drought, especially since all these damn hippies think clearing out the underbrush is a bad idea. Well, what if just once a month, twice a month, we actually sent that region a couple of inches of rain so that it would not become a giant tinderbox on a bunch of hillsides? Like this region of the country is so well set up. It's the perfect conditions for these kind of fires. It's going to funnel the wind in certain directions.
Right.
It's going to stay dry for extended periods of time. What if we could just make it rain, even once or twice a season during the dry season? And now all of a sudden, these fires that we hear about year after year after year, fine, the hippies can keep their damn underbrush because now we can fight the fire a different way.
Well, and obviously, Orange Man Bad got a lot of guff for suggesting that Forestry Service's mismanagement of the forests and that underbrush problem was the primary cause of, not cause of the wildfires themselves, but the primary exacerbating factor that made the wildfires as bad as they were. And we've already seen now that Donald Trump is out of office, California is taking measures to try, or has been taking measures to try and get that problem back under control. Now that they don't have to admit that the Donald was right in a capacity where it might help him politically. But I will also say this: when I look at California and the wildfires and solutions to the wildfires in California, I see something largely akin to Ra's al Ghul on the wrong end of a train going way too fast toward the end of an empty track. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Okay, putting aside all the Ayn Rand inspired stuff that came from Batman Begins, fantastic reference, by the way, sir. I still think that there would be virtue in using the technology in that way, because if we can control the California wildfires with this technology, theoretically, there's basically no fire that we cannot control with the same technology.
Right, and let's assume for a moment that there's no downside to the application, that the water just generates magically in the air and we don't have to worry about where it's pulling from, just for the sake of argument. Obviously, that's not the case, but follow me while we get there. This presents a best case study scenario where innovation is solving a major problem. I would go so far as to suggest that if this works, if this is possible, if this is happening, that this could be one of a handful of solutions that is not, hey, let's jump into the Paris Climate Accords so that America can fund
Yeah.
The
Fund
world's
everybody else's bullshit.
so
Yeah.
that America can dump a bunch of money into a bunch of other countries that are the actual polluter problems, so that they can take that money and spend it on something other than solving the problems that they pretend to have, which they created to begin with. Because I mean, we've seen the data. The United States left the Paris Climate Accords and reduced the carbon footprint. Right? So even if you absolutely buy in to the alarmism of the concept of anthropogenic climate change, the fact of the matter is the Paris Climate Accords is categorically not the solution. American exceptionalism, free markets, and rugged individualism have proved. I mean, this is not a theory. This is a matter not in controversy. No intelligent person can argue the counter position. Those attributes of American society are the thing which will solve the problem that they are so concerned about, and they're working their absolute asses off to prevent the problem from being solved in that way. Climate change is a lot like cancer. If you cure it, you can't raise money on it. So there's that. And let's just, since I broached the capitalism thing, I want to share this with you from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is running a for-profit business selling T-shirts with commie slogans on it, and tweeted yesterday and has been absolutely dragged over it. Not sure if you know this, Sean, but transactions aren't capitalism. Capitalism is a system that prioritizes profit at any and all human/environmental cost. But for what it's worth, our shop is unionized, doesn't operate for profit, and funds projects like free tutoring, food programs, and local organizing. This woman has a degree in economics, and I desperately wish that I could be in front of her to actually ask her, if your business doesn't generate a profit, then what funds is it putting out to projects like free tutoring, food programs, and local organizing?
Yeah. Do you remind me?
This woman doesn't know what is. She doesn't understand what capitalism. She doesn't have a slight misunderstanding of the intricacies of capitalism. She doesn't know what it is.
Steve, give Steve the top comment award, because he says that Dubai forcing rain where it usually isn't qualifies as actual man-made climate change.
Yes,
that is brilliant. Way to win, man. I'm telling you, I go back to my theory that she is not as dumb as she puts on. She's an actress. She is. She is playing her part, and every single time I see somebody wearing a Che Guevara T-shirt, I just subtract 10 points from whatever their base level IQ is. I mean, who came up with that idea? To be like, okay, all right, this is how we're going to troll them. We're going to sell T-shirts with Che's face on them.
Yeah. We're going to capitalism the hell out of this communism thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, name for me, forget about trying to find a communist state that's been successful. Name for me one communist state that has existed without the subsidization of an external capitalist state. I won't wait because we are out of time. We are going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Thanks for joining us this morning, guys. Cameron, do you have anything else you want to tie a bow around before we shut it down this morning?
No, 30 minutes on the button. Well played, sir.
Rock and roll, baby. Hey, thanks for joining us this morning, guys. We will see you tomorrow morning for Firearms Friday. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and thanks for watching.